From our studios in Tampa and Los Angeles, this is Green Tagged Theme Park in 30. I'm Philip, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Scott Swenson of Scott Swenson Creative Development. Ah, well, it's almost September, Scott. We have this. Our big story start off this week is talking about Knott Scary Farm and their 50th anniversary. It kind of we've kind of got. They waited a little bit to give us all the details, but there are a lot of details, and they were all revealed during their Nightmares Revealed event, which was a new event that just happened this past week on the 24th. So it was kind of like given via presentation that was live streamed. So people got to watch the live stream, and then they sent out press releases. And if you were there in person, you got to watch it in person. So,
didn't you say it was also open to the
yeah.
public?
So the event, the Nightmares Revealed event, was a new event this year that was open to anybody, season pass holders, regular people, and then there were invited media, and there was a ticket fee for it. So we'll talk about that. So I think we'll break it up. We can talk about the announcements first, and then we can talk about the event itself, because we just talked about events like these with the Taste of Terror and why this could be important for kind of drawing out a little bit, like kind of extending the Halloween season a little bit. So.
Well, and I think the Halloween season is extending on its own. So I think events like this are even more important to kind of give people a little wayfinding for the rest of the season. It's like here's what's coming up, here's what's going to happen, because it's already starting before the mass populace is even thinking about Halloween. But again, that's why they have all the cool tie-ins, and then of course this being a big year for Knott's. Big 5-0.
The big 5-0. Oh, okay. I was going to make a 5-0 birthday joke, but okay. So
thanks for not doing it, because that was a long time ago for me. Jerk. Go ahead.
Wow. All right. So the Knott's Scary Farm 50th anniversary will include 3 new mazes, which for a total of 10. There's 7 returning and 3 new mazes. There's going to be 5 scare zones and 4 shows. There's a lot of shows. It's a lot of entertainment. It'll begin September 21st, which is the latest event start date for the ones in SoCal. But in terms of the country of independent haunts, it's not that late. But Horror Nights, of course, will kick everything off in Orlando on the 1st, and then Hollywood on the 8th, and then SeaWorld San Diego and whatnot that weekend, and then the other parks. So they basically they'll have a few weeks before everybody else, after everyone else opened, before they get going, and they're.
Which I don't think is necessarily a bad plan. Yeah. I think the idea of let's not all. I think they've recognized.
You don't want to crowd the same.
There's no point in everybody trying to. Exactly. There's no point in trying to compete directly with everything, and after everyone's had the opportunity, after the avid fans have had the opportunity to experience other stuff, then they can go to Knott's.
It's going to run for 29 nights. And there's a lot in this event. I think the things, I only want to highlight the things that are most interested. You can open the show notes and read the entire announcement, but the things that are most interesting to me are the 3 new mazes. Not that there are 3 new mazes, but what's interesting is the stories behind the new mazes, specifically 2 of them. So there's one that's Cinema Slasher, which is just a kind of an homage to slasher films. The one that's most interesting is called The Chilling Chambers, and this is going to be like a 50th anniversary celebration maze where there's a keeper who has been keeping and collecting some of the secrets from years gone by, and you're going to walk through the chambers and into different scenes from the history of Scary Farm. So I think that's an excellent idea, and I think when I was reading it, it kind of reminded me of what you talk about, which is reutilizing your assets. If it's like, if there's a way for you to use a bunch of the props you still have in storage without having to write a new story, really, to connect them all. The story is they've been collected by a collector who is putting them together. I mean, it works. I think in this context for the 50th, it is smart on both ends. It's using assets, and it's also kind of allowing nods to the fans. And if you just come right out and say it, and the keeper, by the way, is their new icon character. So they're rolling him into the park as a whole. But then he gets this maze, which is where he gets to give a nod to Scary Farm's past while terrorizing the audience of today.
Well, and it makes total sense, really, because it's if someone hadn't done this, if they hadn't done a let's call it the best of clip show maze, I think people would have been disappointed. They would have said, "Well, so what are they doing that's 50th related?" And the nice thing about introducing a new character that has been in the shadows collecting all this stuff, it gives the character great depth. It creates the illusion that the character's always been there, even though it's brand new. And so I agree with you. I think this is kind of a clever way to not only reutilize but also give the avid fans exactly what they want, without really damaging any of the storyline issues at all.
I do think also, I'm sure the Knott's team would never admit to this, but as a reporter and as a observer, I would say that Knott's has a little bit of a history of always kind of doing like a nod, kind of like a nod to the culture, right? The Hanging is back this year. We'll talk about that, but they were kind of infamous in that show for that kind of thing. And I think, again, Dark Ride, going through a dark ride in Southern California, there's lots of nods to this. I think a lot of the stuff they're doing is a nod. So, if we just heard this year, right, that the Phantom of the Opera was coming to Universal, and now suddenly there's the Keeper who lives in a cathedral, but like underground and has been watching nods for come on, it's it's also no secret that the same actor that plays Monty Revolta at the LA Hayride is the Keeper here. It's pretty clear because the character tones are so similar, and obviously it's the same guy. But so I think even trying to work that in, working in like a nod to the Hayride with a similar character, and working in like a nod to, like, this is their Phantom of the Opera. You know what I mean? Like I think these are fun nods.
Well, and Knott's and again, I have not been to Knott's Scary Farm in many, many years, but even back, over 20 years ago when I went, which was the last time, their whole approach was sort of the nods to the insiders. I think that, and they've played it really, really smoothly, I think, at least from my perspective, in the fact that they're making it nods to the insiders without being exclusive to those people who are not insiders in the haunt industry. They're playing to a core audience without shunning a broader spectrum, or a less I don't want to use the word educated, but a less immersed audience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think they've been very wise in doing that, and I think it's what helps maintain their, as one of the oldest theme park Halloween events, they're still maintaining a certain level of cool without throwing out their history. I think it's a very wise approach.
And then the other one I want to highlight was Room 13, which basically, if you follow again, it's another one that stands on its own, but is for the super fans, because there's this green elixir that it started off as in just promo commercials, and you're kind of like, what is that green elixir, right? And then it got its own scare zone a few years ago called the Goring 20s, which our friend Ted worked on, which we talked about on the show, because they had little performances, and there's, it was very immersive, for scare zones, and now the haunt is exploring the backstory of the creation of that elixir. So they're kind of tying, they're really bringing it full circle in that. So again, it's the same we talk about. It's like following the story. It's like, people are interested in the scare maze. It's doing well. And now you can kind of back up, and you don't have to retcon anything, but you can, tell the story of the device that people are carrying around, which really, I think, probably started off as just a narrative plot point to kind of tie it together. Because if it's the Goring 20s, then this is the alcohol stand-in, but evil, right? So I think
It's absinthe from hell.
Yeah,
It's what it boils down
exactly.
to,
So I
you
think
know.
it started off as a plot point, but as you know, the fandom for that scare zone grew, you know, and I think this is exactly what we talk about. It's like, you know, you kind of sometimes you put out your story and you wait to see what people are interested in, then you can, if it's a good story, there's always, you know, more to it. So you can broaden it from there once people show they care about what this green liquid is.
Right. Right. And the fact that, they're doing sort of it sounds like they're doing sort of a
Yep.
prequel, because they need to, because they want to explain it's the inception of this green liquid, how it was created. Prequels, sequels, it's something that's been going on in horror films forever, and I think it's perfect fodder for the development and expansion of, a haunt branding within a haunted attraction. I will say the thing that I'm most excited, because I never read your notes before we start the show. Uh, I should, but I don't. But I will say the thing I was most excited about, though, is to see that The Hanging
Yep.
is coming back. When I, 20 years ago, 23 years ago, 22 years ago, when I was last at Knott's, the Hanging was in its heyday, and it was, in my opinion, the most irreverent and bombastic, like nothing was sacred, no holds barred, over the top Halloween show I had ever seen. And it in my opinion at that time it was so much more compelling because they really didn't give a crap about who they offended. They didn't care about what toes they stepped on. It sort of blew, sorry Universal friends, kind of blew Bill and Ted
Yep.
out of the water,
Yep.
because they didn't follow any real. I didn't get the feeling they were following any corporate
Yeah.
standards. I'm hoping that is the case as it returns, because it was by far the most irreverent of all the Halloween shows I'd ever seen.
Yeah. It was interesting because remember, it was previously written by Ken Parks, who has now moved over to the
Mm-hmm.
corporate entertainment side. So I'd be curious to
Mm-hmm.
know who was working on writing it now, you know, as in like if it's, you know, because it was kind of like Ken's brainchild. So I don't know if anyone knows, please let us know because I'm curious.
If I know Ken, he probably has a finger or two in it. At least throwing in some ideas, because Ken is an amazing writer, and his conceptualization for storytelling is wonderful, and I've had the great pleasure of
Mm-hmm.
working with him on a couple different occasions, and he's amazing. So let me put it this way: I hope whoever's writing it was smart enough to go to Ken and say, "Hey, Ken, you're the one who's really the mastermind behind this kind of thing. What do you think of this?" And see what he was able to
Yeah.
judge.
Let's see. Also, so looking more at the event as a whole and some of the larger components of it, I think season passes are back, and that they have not been back for a while, if I remember correctly. And we just talked about this when we talked about Disney doing the opposite, right? Where Mickey's Not So Scary isn't offering a season pass; they're just they're just relying on people to buy day tickets and sell out, and it's working. And you know, the sellout dates continue to creep, as Scott said, from the end and the beginning, and might meet in the middle sometime in September. So this is kind of the opposite approach, and I think the season pass is like $140 or something. It's very reasonable. It's shockingly reasonable. I think. I think I've seen independent haunts that have a more expensive season pass. So I'm not sure if they're not worried about capacity or if, I don't know, because I feel like you know I think the Disney direction is to try and get, you know, the day rate. So I'm not sure if they just are. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's interesting. We'll see how it turns out.
Well, generally speaking, there are two approaches to do an event of any kind in a theme park. And one approach is to make your money on the gate, and the other is to make your money on the merchandise, the culinary, the return visitation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It clearly sounds like this is an example of the gate is not where they plan to make their
Yep.
profitability. It is every time somebody comes back, they'll buy X, Y, and Z. They'll do upcharges. They'll visit some of the retail establishments and may not purchase things the first visit, but may purchase something much larger the second visit because they come back and go, "Ooh, I've been thinking about that. I really want it."
Yeah.
So again, that's what it sounds like, just based on super basic theme park theory when it comes to profitability. It's not about the number of tickets you sell; it's about the in-park spend, or it is about the number of tickets you sell, and to heck with the in-park spend. So those are the two main focuses, and it sounds like they are definitely looking at getting people into the park so that they will
Yeah.
spend money there.
Well, speaking exactly to that, Scott, this year they have a legacy store. So I guess it's for those listening to this podcast, they should be aware of the tribute store in Orlando, and I think this is really going down that same vibe. And you know what? It's working for Universal, so it's like it's not this. You know, we talk about this on the show a lot. It's never it's like copying can be flattery, and it if you're in a different market, it can work for you. And I think this is a very, I mean, I'll just put it this way: nobody else in SoCal is doing a tribute store, a legacy store. Nobody else in SoCal is doing a legacy store to this scale by any stretch of the. I mean, this is a full, just like in Orlando, it is a full installation, and this year it features again scenes from mazes in the past where they brought in pieces of the mazes and put them in there to make photo ops and put whatnot, and it is accessible from the marketplace and from the park, which means it can be open every single day, even days that Scary Farm is not open. It's open every single day from now through the close of the event through Halloween. And I mean, Disney, they set up their merch and it looks great, and but Hollywood doesn't do this here, and Six Flags doesn't do this here. So it's really, I think in terms of the SoCal area, it's a test to see how this will go. And now this is in addition to the art show that's coming back. I mean, they moved this whole thing and they really focus on this. So I think to your point, exactly what you just said. I mean, they're really leaning into the merch and the experience of the merch.
Well, and we've talked about retailtainment for a very long time, and the retailtainment that started in the theme park, went outside the theme park, and went to the mall is now coming back to the theme park. So everything is cyclical. I don't think every time I write anything, I always include a retail component, and I have written just recently, written shows that are their purpose is twofold. It's number one, it's to add an additional element to an event, but number two, it is also to bring a crowd in so that the retail side of the area is focused and has a bunch of people that are already there ready to buy, because it becomes interactive.
Yeah, I think.
So, yeah, go for it.
I think you
love it.
can. I agree with that 100%. I think the order I usually tell people though is like when I work with my clients, the same thing. It's like you have to make your product good first. The product has to be good, right? But then beyond that, these are ways, and they should be really as good, and they should be tied into the story. I mean, again, just look at Universal. I mean, really, your food should tie into what you're doing. Your food should be an experience, and it should tie into the story. And your merch should be the same thing. It should be an experience, and it should tie in to what you're trying to do there. So like at Hush, we do the themed bars, but all the drinks and all the stuff ties in to the zone they're in. And then for merch this year, you have the Hush Falls Hotel. We have Hush Falls Hotel keys. You can get a key card. You can get a room key to show that you've been at the Hush Falls. I mean, just things that they don't have to be, break the bank, right? If you don't have theme park budgets, but they should really tie into the story. It should be a piece of the story that the guests can have to remind them.
Mm-hmm. Well, Terror Roulette is doing the exact same thing this year, and it's a brand new haunt, in a very crowded market. But the merchandise, I'm very excited. I'm seeing some of the preliminary sketches of the merch, and I'm hoping that it all gets produced the way I'm seeing it, because some of it is blatant and some of it is completely story tied, and that guests won't know unless they actually have experienced the attraction. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And it's not quite a full legacy store, because, well, there's no point in doing legacy for something that's just opening this year. But it will be, there will be pieces that will go, oh, that was from year one when XYZ happened. And I think that could be really
Yeah.
cool. So,
Well,
yeah.
and on, I think I would be remiss to not mention some of the new merch. So there's there's like a Not Scary Farm Monopoly, Scariopoly set that was developed, which is great. And there's also, I think the big thing they're pushing this year is for this lantern. And again, it fits into the story because if you remember the conductor who came out a few years ago, he's always infamous for having his lantern. So it fits into the lore of Knott's. But this lantern, it's basically like a glow with the show. It really reminds me of the stuff we worked on at from Gantum with Knott's many years ago, about the interactivity.
Mm-hmm.
The premise is that the guests can buy this lantern for $40 and they can carry it with them through the entire event, including into the mazes and into those areas. And it has a static show mode, which is the regular lantern glow. And then there's 100 instances around the event as a whole where it performs some interactive thing. So I'm really curious to get your feedback because I've heard already from some naysayers that say that they think it's going to ruin the maze experience if everybody's holding lanterns that are all lighting the maze, blah blah blah. Me personally, I think it looks really cool, and I think that from a content standpoint, I just think that it's a cool. It's like you're giving everybody a prop that, and this is a weird thing. Scott's going to roll his eyes, but I think you're giving everybody a prop they can take great photos with, and then when they hold it up to their face, it lights their face, so it makes better photos. That's my takeaway.
Says the content creator.
So and how I've already done a lot of sexy content with that lantern, Scott.
Yes. So here's my thought.
Up, baby.
When you hit the, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's like giving everybody a prop. To me, it makes visually it will make the guests walking through the haunted mazes look like they are part of the experience. They're not just passive observers; they are now part of the haunt. And if they're smart, they will throw in some characters who are carrying the lantern as well to sort of blur the line between guest and staff, or guest and cast. But I love it. I think that by making the guest a part of the story, a part of the experience, it's great. And the truth be told, everybody's, before it's even happened, there are those naysayers that are saying, well, I'm concerned that it's going to light up the haunt too much. But keep in mind that, if there are areas that they don't want it to light up, they can easily program it that it goes off. They can easily program it so at this point in time it strobes to make it even more disorienting. My issue with any of these sort of interactive things is don't use it to do anything that you can use a proximity sensor to do. Correct. Because nobody will know.
Yeah. Well, that is exactly the problem that we had with our torch stuff back in the day, right? It was like even though we worked with Knott's to redo the trick or treat maze, people didn't know that the flashlight was the thing triggering the stuff that it looked like a proximity sensor. Yeah. So I agree with all that. And then of course food. They have a lot of food offerings. I don't want to go into them. You can read the thing for that. And parking is raised at $35 a car this year, which I think if you have a parking pass, it doesn't apply to you. But yowza. And then you can read the article. There's hotel packages. There's a buffet. There's all these other things. Read the article for that. Those are the things I thought was most interesting. As I mentioned at the top of the show, though, this whole thing was an event. And the event was open to the public. It was on August 24th. It was $20 per person, regardless of whether you had a pass or whatnot. Media was invited. So they basically tried to do this announcement event for the first time ever and a media night at the same time. So as you can guess, there were some logistical hiccups because it's first year event. We talked about it with Taste of Terror, right? Remember I talked Taste of Terror? I was like, they didn't have enough tables. They had to move stuff around.
Right. Well, I mean, anytime you try to be a servant to two masters, somebody is going to be left out in the cold, whether that is the media or or the guests who paid to be there. And you have to be careful. I'm sure there was a great bit of learning as to how they can improve and how they can tweak and massage and perhaps expand or divide or whatever for this event. I on the one hand, I love the idea of having actual guests at a media event. At the same time, I think that actually takes money out of your pocket because the media can't do what they're necessarily there to do.
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent that you make media events a strong representation of the product, an honest representation of the product, but in the best possible light so that the media can get what they need to get in order to promote your experience. Yep. And I've been through many a media day and am involved with 1, 2, 3 this year for different clients. And we've talked a lot about making certain that in the media day, you don't just decide what you're going to do as the company. You decide what are the guests going to do. What is the moment to moment experience of the media, and does it differ between broadcast media and social media? Does it differ between radio and print media and television media? So you really have to have somebody who is concerned about how do we get this person, what does their night look like? Not just what are we offering them, but what does their night look like? And how do we make certain that they get everything they need in order to promote your experience? And I strongly recommend that for any sort of media night, you look at, you take a moment to sit down and go, okay, they arrive, now what? And you'll find that there are places that you either need additional bodies to help media wayfind or additional signage, or you all of a sudden forgot, oh gosh, they're signing in here, but we don't have a table. I mean, it comes down to things that are that basic, or we don't have enough tables, or we don't have enough food or beverage, or whatever it is. And I just strongly recommend that no matter whether you are a theme park or an independent haunt or, an independent Christmas event or a theme park Christmas event or whatever, whenever you're doing a media experience, make sure you do that litmus test, that double check where you take it from the point of view of the media person, and you know exactly what they're going to have happen, in what order, who takes them from where to where. And that will help in most cases, make for a much smoother night and much kinder media.
Oh, that's perfect. I 100% agree with that. I think it definitely did feel like it was almost two separate events. One was like a media preview, and one was this preview for the public. And the events didn't feel like they really talked to each other. And as a result, I think that there was a lot of frustrated media. I know as a member of the media, I didn't get what I needed to get, and none of the media that I know got what they needed to get either. And including some of the broadcast people that I know from the local TV stations. To your point, Scott, I mean, I spoke with a few of them, and they were, they couldn't get what they needed to get for those reasons, of going through it. But right. Right. But for those people listening that are thinking of doing some sort of preview event, we've been talking about preview events and why they're important for a while. I just want to give the overview of what the event offered for people listening. I think this event was, it's definitely, to my knowledge, I think this will actually be the largest preview event for a Halloween attraction. I think because Taste of Terror was just food, right? So I think this is the largest thing that anyone has tried so far. And it was, for a one night event that's a month before they open, it was a pretty big lift, I think. So the biggest thing to me was that there was the ghost town area was filled with fog and scare actors. So we had scare actors out. It really felt like you're walking through. The full show lighting was on. The fog was in. There were actors out. They had 3 photo ops, including one with the keeper. So they had the icon character for this year that was out. They did a lights on walking tour of their old maze origins from last year that kind of tells the story of Knott's. They were doing makeup demos on stage, show people how they're transformed into characters. They were doing Not Scary Farm trivia. They were even doing a 50-year retrospective hosted by Ted Doherty, our friend Ted. They were doing previews of the Legacy store. They had the wardrobe department was out doing presentations on the costuming. You could buy your lantern and start testing it out. And of course, you could ride Ghost Rider even, and you could buy food. It was a massive event for 3 hours, right? So it was, and a month before the show opened. So
yeah, and again, just hearing it, and I did not attend the event, so I cannot say whether this was the case or not. For me, that would mean that there was too much. I wouldn't know where to go, and I wouldn't know what I missed.
yeah, that's exactly how I felt.
So, and again, I did not attend the event, so I have no idea. But I applaud them for the robustness, but I would have challenged them to say, let's focus and look at what we want our end results to be. And but again, I'm sure there are people who went and said, "Oh my gosh, I got to do everything, and I got to see everything, and everything was available to me," and that's wonderful as well. So anyway, just make sure that as you're planning these kinds of events, that you look at it from the participant standpoint, not just from the host standpoint. Looking at things from our host standpoint, we're already out of time. Can you believe it? 30 minutes just went by like that, and we've done nothing but talk about Not Scary Farm. But it is a big event, and it is their 50th anniversary, so I think that's only fair. Tune in next week when we will be back to talk about more things theme park and attraction based with my friend and co-host Philip Hernandez and myself, Scott Swenson. Until next week, this is Green Tag Theme Park in 30, and we'll see you then.